Hello, and welcome back to another inspiring episode of the Achieving Unity Success Formula weekly podcast, where we turn chaos into connection and purpose into action. I'm your host, Mark Intrican, the founder of the Achieving Unity Success Formula, making life better by encouraging, inspiring, and including others. Today's guest is Julie Lythcott Haims, and Julie is a dynamic speaker, an acclaimed author, educator, and public servant whose work is rooted in a profound belief in human dignity, personal growth, and authenticity, something that we all need each and every day. Julie was born in Lagos, Nigeria, and raised across New York, Wisconsin, and Virginia. Julie has built a remarkable career focused on fostering resilience, independence, and inclusion. Julie holds degrees from Stanford University, Bachelor of Arts, Harvard Law School, her Juris Doctorate, and California College of the Arts. She has a master's in writing, reflecting a lifelong commitment to intellectual rigor and creative exploration. But first, before we engage into this insightful discussion, let me quickly introduce my company, Reality Focus Dynamics, where this all began. As you see on the first slide, I have a gift for you. I hope you'll take this gift. It is our Achieving Unity Guide, and it talks about the things that we speak on so often. And it's ending some of the disconnection or hate or sometimes the frustration or the anger, maybe some of the disconnection, the prejudice and the prejudgment. It talks about that, and would love to have your feedback. You can have access the guide on the bottom left with the QR code, and on the bottom right, you can go to my blog, which I have all of my newsletters out there that comes out on the first and third Thursdays of every month. We'll have a new copy coming out tomorrow. I hope you'll sign up, look at my newsletter, give me feedback. Thank you for being here. This is, again, our Achieving Unity Success Formula weekly podcast. We're here every week. This is number 49. We're coming close to our first year with the podcast. We are every Wednesday, 1 p.m. Pacific time, 4 p.m. Eastern time, and please put it on your calendar. Come see us every week. We have new guests, bring out new information, sharing a lot of the information that we need to know going from day to day. Oh, and let me say one thing too. I've come down with a cold, flu, virus, allergy. So my voice may be a little bit different today, and I may be drinking a little bit of water during the podcast. But just to let you know, thank you for being here. Reality Focus Dynamics, Success Focus Solution. As you see, our logo is on the slide, and it truly represents the heart of what we do. Notice how focused sits right in the center? That's because everything that we explore, from reality-focused dynamics to success-focused solution, revolves around clear, intentional direction. In fact, that idea of focus is so central to us. It's even built right into our business phone number. That's right. 303-362-8733 spells 303 focused on your phone pad. So it's easy to remember our number. Anytime you have questions, troubles, issues, want to talk, just remember, get focused. 303 focused. We believe that we can create meaningful change and achieve lasting unity being together. What we have is proven, compassionate strategies that turn all the conflicts that we have into a lasting harmony. This is at home, at work, and in every relationship that truly matters. Are you ever frustrated by tension, by arguments? Our 7-step roadmap comes through our course, gives you the tools to move from conflict to collaboration quickly and confidently. It helps us in craving stronger trust and connection. Discover communication tactics that build respect, repair relationships, and unify teams and families alike. We help you transform conflict into connection, together, achieving unity. Unity inspires in the home. It shapes society and transforms workplaces. We help you turn that frustration into understanding. Sometimes when we don't understand, do we just want to say something like, what the frustration? Okay, maybe that's not the word we use, but we should, because frustration is our biggest challenge. We can find value in our actions instead of reacting in anger or letting that frustration win. We show that anger holds no value. Anger is just actions not gaining effective results. ANGER, actions not gaining effective results. We know that life happens in every relationship, from personal to professional. We work with people from parenting time to partnerships, in the boardroom, in the bedroom, and every room in between. We show you how to embrace those challenges and encourage a more inspired and inclusive future. That's our EII. I have several articles and ideas that come from EII in our newsletter. I hope you'll join. We have one vision, one goal, achieving unity in every area of life. What's our call to action? Well, let's ditch the drama. Let's get stuff done. This works on the personal side, goes on the business side, and on the social side. We show you how to turn your life from what may seem like a dumpster fire into a well-oiled machine. Achieving unity is the path to stronger relationships, inspired leadership, and lasting change. We help through coaching, consulting, our courses, and keynote speeches. Contact us today. You can reach us at www.realityfocuseddynamics.com. We can go to markentrica.com or achievingunity.com. But you can contact us today by calling 303-362-8733, which is 303 Focused. Hope you give us a call. Our upcoming podcast. Again, on August, we're focusing on the moms, the mothers, and the parenting from that side of our relationships. And next week, Martha Burrick comes and she speaks on, yes, you can raise happy, responsible children. It's a great concept. It's a great thing to work with. 1st of September, Sue Patz comes in and talks to us about a new beginning. Starting in the second week of September, Scott Schilling, creating authentic relationships that truly matter. That's important. Then on September 17th, Mala Johansson, self-publishing is easy. It's as easy as 1, 2, 3 for anyone at any age. So if you've ever thought about writing a book, come talk to us on September 17th. And then on September 24th, Michael Davis comes, talks about storytelling power trio, how to put storytelling into your conversations. Now, what I've been waiting for, I'm so excited. Talk to Julie Lythcott Haims, from raising adults to reimagining belonging. Julie is a New York Times bestselling author, former Stanford dean, Palo Alto City Council member. Julie has degrees from Stanford, Harvard Law, and California College of the Arts. Julie brings a powerful mix of lived experience and professional insight. She has the lived experience and the education that tops it off. The groundbreaking book, How to Raise an Adult, challenged modern parenting norms and inspired a viral TED Talk. The award-winning memoir, The Real American, shares Julie's journey as a Black and biracial woman in white spaces. The most recent book, Your Turn, How to Be an Adult, is a refreshing, honest guide to a thriving in adulthood. Today, Julie advocates for equity, housing, climate, and youth mental health in Silicon Valley, while continuing to guide audiences toward courage, growth, and authentic belonging. Her URL is in the bottom right. Her link, just www.julielithcotthaims.com. Please connect with her. But if you would, please help me welcome Julie Lythcott Haims.
Rookie mistake. I was muted.
How are
My
you?
pleasure to join you. Thank you for having me. Great to be with you and your listeners.
Oh, Julie, it's so great having you here. Thank you for coming. It's exciting to be able to talk about someone that thinks a lot of the same ways that I do and I want all of us to do. And the work that you're doing is tremendous.
Thank
Can
you.
you just give us a quick introduction of yourself and tell us what do you do and why you do it?
Yeah, thank you for the opportunity. I'm 57. I live in the San Francisco Bay Area. I'm a mom of a 26-year-old and a 24-year-old, and I've raised these kids with my partner, my husband Dan. Been together for 37 years, so since we were in college. My mother was until recently, a part of our life. We all lived in a house together, and she just passed away about 5 months
Oh, I'm
ago.
sorry.
Thank you. But living multi-generationally has taught me, been a laboratory for me to work out some of my own issues, try to, be a better daughter, try to be a better mom and partner. Um, I'm really motivated by in my work. I'm motivated by a desire to help humans thrive and, more specifically, help humans um, really kind of discover who they are and give themselves permission to go be that person, do that work that you're passionate about, as opposed to what you think you're supposed to do because of societal expectations. And I think I'm drawn to this work because, having been that kid who was Black, biracial, growing up in white spaces across America, I was often otherized. I was often um, presumed not to be capable, or presumed not to be worthy, or presumed to be problematic. And those early childhood experiences of being kind of pushed to the margins made me want to ensure no one else is pushed to the margins. Whether as a lawyer or as a university dean or as a nonfiction writer or as a public servant, I think one of my core values is I want to make sure we're putting our arms around everybody and giving everybody kind of the opportunity to be a part of, you know, the community and this world and this life, and to really feel accepted for who they are. And so that's my why. I'm interested. I root for humans, and my work is about trying to help people identify the obstacles in their way. And I just love having the opportunity to talk with folks who are similarly curious about the human journey and the human experience.
I think that is awesome. Just awesome what you're doing, Julie. I was just trying to find my articles just quickly. I wrote an article on put the E for excellent back in human, and you put the E on the end of human. What do we have?
Humane.
Humane.
Yeah.
Exactly. Thank you. Because that's the way we all need to be. And our learning, our culture, the things that we have caught on to as we've grown up, sometimes doesn't lead that way, does it?
Right.
Well,
Yeah.
you say you root for humans. Can you tell us more about what that actually looks like in your daily life?
Yeah. First of all, I believe fundamentally that we're all born good. And I think when we encounter people who are difficult, problematic, maybe who have violated rules or norms, I'm super curious about who was that person before they kind of became or were perceived to have become problematic. So I bring a real compassion to every human interaction I have. I'm aware that anyone I interact with, from my family member to a stranger on the street and everyone in between, they have a set of life experiences I don't know much about, if anything. So I try to bring compassion to my interactions. And I think that shows up in my eye contact. You know, making eye contact, if you're able, is such a profound way to literally embody the phrase, I see you. We all yearn to be seen. That is, to not be unseen, or we are not to be ignored We want someone to give a darn about us. And eye contact is a great way to signal, I see you. I care to see you. I am present. Beyond that, then in terms of the actual rooting for, I would say I've encountered so many people who feel they ought to study a certain thing or have to become a certain profession or adopt a certain career. This sort of sense of, I need to live my life in furtherance of what others expect or value. And I know the joy that comes from listening to that inner voice that says, but even though everyone is going into engineering, I've always, felt most at home with my paintbrush or digging in the garden or floating down a river as a river guide. I'm here to say, like, when you figure out who you are, what you're good at, what you love, and can give yourself permission to be that person, that's how you're going to make your greatest contributions to society, being yourself and getting better at being that self and listening for your own voice as opposed to the what I call the cacophony, the noise in your head, which is societal expectations, family expectations, peers. And so I'm rooting for all of us to figure out who we are and what we're good at and then go be that person. I'm rooting for you to be who you are, whether it's work, your identities, um, what matters most to you. I'm rooting for you to give yourself permission to simply be you.
I so agree with you, and thank you so much for that because that is powerful for each of us to be able to accept ourselves. And we keep saying we need others to accept us. Well, if we can't accept ourselves, we're going to have struggles within. I'll talk about this a little bit later, but if we're not being who we want to be, who are we being? Right?
Mark, that's an excellent point. And I've actually, worked this concept into one of my keynote speeches, which is essentially derived from my own journey from this lonely place of being that Black and biracial kid in white spaces where I was really the only child of color. I was so different. I looked so different than everybody. And so there was a lot of this exclusion, unbelonging stuff. And it took me until my 30s to really do the inner work to address some of those early experiences that had really made me form a negative sense of self. So my self worth really came from what did others think of me, which is terribly unhealthy. And once I kind of got to the root of that I was yearning for other people's approval, probably because I had met with so much disapproval when I was young and was able to name it, identify it, like really sit with it. you know that need for external approval really started to dissipate. It's not entirely gone, but it's not predominantly what influences how I feel about myself anymore. It's, I have a sense of my own self, who I am, my identities, what I want, what I'm good at, what I'm working on. And what I tell people is, when you finally understand who you are and, in your identities, and you love that self, you actually accept this is who I am and I like myself and I'm working on things, yes, but I'm fundamentally okay with who I am. Then you belong to yourself. You're not at odds with yourself. So then you have this protection of like self-love. I sort of describe it as a bubble that
Yes.
surrounds you. So when you are self-loving, when you are self-accepting, when you feel that sense of self-acceptance, then you do belong everywhere because they can't hurt you. If you're looking to them to approve you and validate you and they don't, then you break. But if you go into any situation, a board meeting, a community meeting, a family conversation, an interaction with your peers with that self-love, you're so protected from any of the slings and arrows that might, intentionally or unintentionally be being sent your way. And so that self-love turns out to be quite protective when it comes to
Yes.
how hard it can be sometimes to interact with other humans.
I love what you're saying there too, Julie, because when we accept ourselves, we can promote ourselves. And through that promotion, we can develop that self-confidence that we are somebody no matter who we're around,
Hmm.
all of us. And one of the things I talk about, and I'd love to have your feedback on this, is that we all come from one of four blood types. And I speak about this in a couple of my speeches. We're either type A, type B, type AB, and type O. There's a positive and negative for each one of them. But the bottom line is there's 4 blood types. If you're in the United States, if you're in Russia, if you're in China, Scandinavia, Iceland, wherever we are from, it's Nigeria, there's still just 4 blood types. If we were to get injured, like I was in southern Mississippi, they didn't run back to my hometown and say, hey, Mark's hurt, he needs blood. Who has blood that's, a tall, light-skinned guy going to college? Do you have some people like that have blood for him? No. It's whoever donated blood in the small town of Hattiesburg, Mississippi, kept me alive. It didn't matter about anything about, did they have 2 tattoos? Did they have dark hair, blonde hair? Were they tall? Were they short? It didn't matter because we are truly all the same, right?
Yeah. 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 I love that point. I'm glad you got the help you needed. I'm type O neg,
Thank you.
with a special something that makes me suitable for preemies. So I've got the like universally
Wow.
blood and
Universal
also
donor.
and but I also have a phobia of needles. So I've really had to work on that. Like I want to be of service. I want to be of use. Can I overcome my own fears so that I can, be a blood donor? And I've worked at that over the years. And I love the notion that look, when you cut us all open, we all bleed. There's only 4 blood types, and
That,
we are quite different. And it's different in Hattiesburg, Mississippi than it is in Palo Alto, California versus, Nigeria or Scandinavia or Taiwan. And those differences are beautiful. They create an incredible variety in the human community. And I think where we want to get is yes, we have a lot of differences. They don't make anybody worse or better than anybody else. When we begin to
that's right.
assign value to the cultural differences and get into this sense of, well, these people are, superior to these, that's when, we really see societal fracture and rupture and violence. When we can get to this place of, hey, we are quite, we all got, one of these 4 blood types and a whole lot of other differences. Let's be curious about the differences, but not in a way that exotifies somebody or that demonizes them. Let's be delighted by the difference and embrace the fact that underneath all those differences, we're all the same.
That is so true. And we can focus on those differences and we can create some of those differences. Simple solution. And I'd like to just kind of touch on this. I was in Pensacola, Florida last week. So I've come back with a little bit darker skin. I got some sunshine when I was down there. I'm a darker skinned person now. Does that make me any different? Am I better off? Am I worse off? Because I think that's one of the things that we need to think about. You talk about racial differences. The color of our skin, part of it's given to us at birth, right? And then part of it we have some control over. So it's what we do with ourselves that makes our tomorrow better or not better. So it's up to us to make those differences that we can do something about. What's that song that says, I want to be different like everybody else?
Mm,
We can do some things and say, it's good that we're this way, instead of saying, oh, there's something that I don't understand, so I'm going to put them down because they're not like me. When instead, because, hey, when we could say, hey, they're not like me, let me find out more,
yeah.
right?
Yeah. Yep. And I think also we can do a lot of conflating outcomes with intentions or effort. So, you know, eh, fortunately, I was not born in a time or place where my parents needed to be refugees. But that ain't got nothing to do with me, my effort, their effort. It's sort of right place, right time, wrong place, wrong time. And I'm clear on that. Like I had the good for I was born in Lagos, Nigeria, as you mentioned, but I was born to an American diplomat. My father, my daddy was helping to eradicate smallpox as part of
Oh,
the
wow.
CDC from the United States, Centers for Disease Control, had a team. My dad was part of it. He was headquartered in Lagos, and I was born to him and my mother, who was British. in this third country. So I'm born to an American dad, a British mom in West Africa, and such privilege. You know, we were middle class family, and you know, we never, in the grand scheme of things, we never really wanted for much. My parents were educated; they had good work opportunities. They provided that to me. I'm super clear that yeah, my parents worked hard, and their hard work resulted in greater bounty for me, their child. But there's a lot of luck involved in the fact that, you know, I got to be raised in America in a place that was, you know, that did offer opportunity and education and healthcare and so on. And I'm not here to judge the people who were born into a different circumstance, who have a much harder life. I don't look down on them and say, work harder, what's wrong with you? You know, I say, like, wow, you know, to be born in a war torn area or an area with famine or, um, what have you, you know, like, eh, I have feel such compassion for the humans who were born in circumstances far less privileged than my own. And I think there's a humility that when we are privileged people, privileged financially, privileged in terms of the country in which we live, you know, to bring a humility to that, as opposed to like, well, you know, if you just worked hard, you'd be like me. It's not that simple, you know. Yes, hard work is important.
Yes,
But some of us have fertile ground within which to grow from the start. And many people, you know, are born into really barren circumstances.
they are. And actually, I'm working with a close friend, Samuel, who is in Nigeria,
Hmm.
and another friend, Damien, that's working out of Rwanda. And we're helping build a hotel in Rwanda that 10% of all earnings at the hotel will go back into the community and help in food, clothing, shelter, education, and finding a job for the people there because there's so much. There's some even here I'm in Mississippi right now. There's a lot of people here in Mississippi that don't know some of the basic things that we all need to know. But there's a lot of people around the world that just don't know that that world that you're talking about, Julie, does exist for all of us if we just put it together.
Yeah.
That's one of the things that we do have, even in Rwanda. If we can show more people that they can do, a lot of them right now are growing farmers.
Yeah.
They grow potatoes on their roof. There's things, you probably know much more about this than I do,
Mm.
but there is a way that we can educate them
Yeah.
in software
Yeah.
and job where they can earn money with
Yeah.
jobs on the computer. And that's
Yeah.
one of the things that we're trying to grow in that area because the opportunity is there, right?
Yeah.
But they don't have that reach yet.
Yeah.
They
You know,
can't touch it yet.
I love that you're doing that work in Rwanda. One of my favorite Stanford students, I was a dean for more than a decade, and I had a freshman one year from Rwanda. He had survived the Rwandan genocide as a 4-year-old, and he and his family were refugees first in Uganda and then other countries. Ultimately, you know, made it to a good high school in the United States and made it to a place like Stanford University. And my job was to root for him to be successful as his dean, knowing he might encounter some stumbling blocks along the way because he hadn't had the same preparation that his peers had had. In other ways, his struggle as a refugee and as a survivor of genocide gave him a sense of personal accountability, hard work, goal setting, don't trust anybody, like you can only rely on yourself. There's a lot of skills that came from that hardship. Fast forward to today, he's an engineer. He lives in the South. I think he's in Alabama now. And after helping coffee farmers back on the continent of Africa, micro farmers, you know, squeeze more dollars out of their production, and so as to be able to really create livable, you know, conditions for themselves in an industry that's been, you know, where there's so much exploitation of coffee farmers. And he was really trying to empower them and did. Then he developed a company that can predict how weather patterns are going to influence foliage and trees potentially falling into power lines. So when we
Mm,
know a hurricane is coming, you know, he can, you know, through AI and software, they can look and figure out
Right.
like this is where these communities need to invest their resources today over the next 72 hours to trim the trees so that the branches don't fall in the lines and cause devastating, potentially life devastating power outages. And that
Wow.
ingenuity to solve that problem, which is it's technology that any municipality could benefit from, particularly as we're seeing increase in climate, extreme climate. And that those ideas came out of this kid, who had to survive underground for 3 weeks during the Rwandan genocide as a 4-year-old.
Wow. Such a shame.
But so much
Wow.
came, right? He's
Yeah.
just brilliant and driven, and he has so much sense of possibility. He developed a solar oven when he was in college, a foldable blanket that could be used as an oven and boil to help people boil beans and
Impressive.
rice.
That is.
Yeah.
Well, let's talk about you for a second. How has your own upbringing influenced the way you approach, well, even parenting and the mentoring that you do today?
Yeah.
How has your own upbringing influenced you?
Yeah. My dad was in public health. My mother was a school teacher and then a professor of education. They had high expectations for me around achievement. I got rewarded for straight A's. And, there was that pressure. But they didn't tell me what I had to be. And So I was able to kind of forge my own path. But yet it gave me a lot of compassion for, sometimes we can feel that our worth is our grades, or we're loved more when our grades are high and we're loved less when our grades are low. And so my work centers around valuing each individual and encouraging everybody to be their best, but not driving them like racehorses or dogs in a greyhound dog race. And I think part of that comes from my own upbringing, which was fairly strict and um, high expectations and not a lot of wiggle room for when things went wrong. um I just in raising my own kids, I'm here in Silicon Valley, which is a very pressure filled community. um we we have a high suicide rate here among our teenagers,
Oh,
which
no.
troubles me greatly. And I'm one of the many adults here who are constantly asking, why is it so hard to be a child in this community that so many people wish they could live in, because it's the heart of Silicon Valley, it's the heart of innovation, it's the heart of all of these disruptive technologies, the whole .com, internet. It's the heart of the place. The shadow of Stanford University, falls over this city, and it's full of bounty and possibility, and yet it can be really hard to be a child here, I think, because the expectations are so high and so narrow. And so this just brings me back to like, everyone matters. Figure out what you're good at, and even if it's not robotics or engineering or software, like go be that wilderness naturalist. Go be that EMT and save lives from the back of an ambulance. Go be a fourth grade teacher. The world needs all of those things, and if that's your passion, go pursue it and get great at it.
And don't feel bad about any decision that you make for yourself.
Right.
If you are with it, go for it. Don't worry about how other people judge you, right?
Right.
And your memoir, that Real American,
Yes.
that explores identity.
Yes.
Then it explores belonging.
Yes.
There you go. All
That's
right, good.
me. 1 year old. You can tell from the
One
look in my
year.
face. I already knew something was wrong.
Oh,
Yes,
that's great.
this is
That's a great
coming
picture of you.
coming to a place of self-love for sure. This is a journey so many of us are on, whether we look like you or we look like me or anyone else listening. For many of us, we are told that who we are is problematic, that our people are lesser, or that our identity is not valid. And I know the joy that comes from doing the work to finally accept that self, and makes me keenly interested in helping anyone else who's struggling with who can I be me? My answer is yes. I will sit with you and listen with you and just be a mirror and reflect back to you, you know, all the things you're telling me about yourself. It's valid.
It's so true. And as I mentioned earlier, back on November 5th of 2024, my article put the E back in human. Because what is a human if they're not humane? I hope you read that article and give me feedback.
Yeah, cool.
November 5th, 2024. But it's on my
Yeah.
blog.
Okay.
But that's what all of us need to think about, because where we're born doesn't matter. I take it back to the four blood types.
Yeah.
Doesn't matter where you're born. You still have one of those four blood types. We're
Right.
still the same. We can create differences. One of my speeches, I talk about labeling. We label each other. And I talk about just one of those, what are they, 3 foot by 6 foot tables that you fold up and lay against the wall. Well, if you take that little table out and you unfold it and you put it there and you put a tablecloth on it, it could be for serving food, could be for putting paper on it. Or if you put a computer on it and pull a chair up there with a monitor, it's now a desk. You label it based on how we use it. And if we use it right, we use it well, it's going to be a positive label. Stop looking for the negative label. That's where we need to take our lives and when we look at each other, right?
Yeah. 100%.
How did navigating what you call white spaces
Yeah.
shape your perspective on authenticity and resilience?
If you look at me, I'm very light skinned. I'm half black, half white. My dad was African American, my mother's white and British, so that's my ancestry. But you can see my skin tone is not very dark. And I got this curly hair. Um, but as light as I am, I was the darkest thing they had seen in Middleton, Wisconsin, where I went to high school. A
Oh,
farming
wow. Okay.
community, 1,200 kids in my high school, and two Jewish kids, me, and that was pretty much it for the racial and ethnic diversity. And so it's ironic that, as light as I am, I was still way too dark for many people. I might as well have been from Mars. I was quite an oddity to them because I had grown up in a quite homogeneous environment. And of course, I've moved now to a much more diverse place. I live in the San Francisco Bay Area. There are people here from all over the world. Every continent is represented, every skin tone, every hair texture is here. And I'm, keenly aware that as a light skinned African American, I haven't had so many of the kinds of encounters that my darker skinned brothers or sisters have had. I'm also financially privileged and highly educated. And so, in many ways, I've not had a typical Black experience. So, to go from being like the Black kid, in an entirely white space to being like, oh, wow, there are many ways in which my experience is different from the typical Black experience. I'm still the same person in either space, but my identity or my perspective um, has certainly shifted as I become, less on the margins and more part of the mainstream. I'm sort of uh, yeah, aware of, frankly, have greater empathy for people who, for whatever reasons, have been, labeled, like you said. I think it does develop in you. It can either crush you or it can create a lot of resilience. Resilience is built by going through hard stuff and surviving it, and that makes us, more capable of surviving and handling and coping with the next difficult thing that happens. And so, I think I do have a lot of resilience. I think it can also make us build up walls to protect ourselves, and I think uh, you know that it feels safe, but you're if you're distancing yourself from your fellow humans, you're really not getting the most out of this human experience. So the ideal is, I think, to be able to develop that self-love. It doesn't matter what they think of me. I'm still me. They're not going to stop me. If I believe in myself and I love myself, that's what matters. And rather than I have to
So
put walls
true.
up. Yeah.
I'm so glad you say that. And your resilience is outstanding, Julie.
Thank you.
You're very impressive. I knew this when I was just learning about you. It was so interesting. But I came from an interesting position when I was just finished the second grade. It was during all of the segregation of the schools down here in the South and a lot of the fighting, and it was very traumatic down here. And we moved from Cairo, Mississippi
Mhm.
to Lovington, New Mexico. And so I went from one community to another, and the community I went to is labeled as Hispanic. And of course, as I talk to people, It's one of the situations when somebody is 1, 2, 3, 4 years old, they play together, they don't even think about it.
Right.
But then as they get that 4, 5, 6 years old, seven,
Yeah.
8, 10 into the teens, they we build these prejudices.
Yeah.
I played basketball, so I played with a lot of people. I just say darker skin. One of them, we're still close friends. I'm a little bit lighter skinned than he is, a little darker skinned than I am, but we're still friends. We're still great people when we're together as being a friendship. So I
Yeah.
went through a traumatic changeover in some ways in that process. But then again, I went through a divorce system that built on the deadbeat dad syndrome. So I got
Mm.
destroyed trying to see my children. Now, how crazy is that? We have so many prejudices where we're always finding wrong.
Mm.
What can we do to start finding the right, to put that E back in human, that we can be humane about each other? How can we do that going forward?
I'm sorry you went through that. I just want to acknowledge that,
Thank you.
it must have been quite painful. And, I just want to offer compassion to you for that.
Thank you. It was challenging to the point that the judge let my ex take my kids from Denver to Chicago, but a huge separation, all through a guardian ad litem who was very prejudiced in, I'll just say, that attorney's being, and they could see that if they just watched the decision that attorney made as a guardian ad litem attorney for the child.
Yeah.
It was obvious. The first attorney I went through was the same way with the judge, the judicial system.
Yeah.
But it's one of the things that we want to work on. But let's talk about what you're doing today and
Yeah.
what you're achieving. And tell me more about your personal balance, how you're embracing your
Yeah.
identity while helping
Yeah.
others feel included.
Yeah. Well, the best thing that ever happened to me was my partner, Dan. He was 19 and I was 20 when we fell in love. And we just celebrated our 33rd wedding anniversary. And quite,
Congratulations.
thank you. He was quite unique as a young man in the late 80s. He turned to me and he said, "If we ever have kids, I want to be home with them." And here I was, trying to get educated, trying to work hard. And the message women were getting in the 80s was you can have it all. You can, raise kids and have your man and work a professional job. And they were saying you can do it. Nobody was saying it was going to be easy because it's hard to play all three of those roles. And so to have a partner say, you know what, I think I want to be home with kids, which was a direct response to what he saw in his childhood with a very hardworking but absent father, and divorce. He wanted the opposite for his own relationship with his kids. So I had the benefit of, I had the full-time career. My partner worked part-time. My mother bought a home with us. She was also helping raise the kids. So we really did have that village. It takes a village model of
Right.
multi-generational living where our kids benefited, we benefited, my mom benefited. And I just have to give them kudos because whomever I've become professionally is definitely supported by an amazing husband. And my mother was quite an important factor as well. um
Great.
you know what, I'm working on my next book and I want to tell you about it. It's called
Please.
it's called The Bonus Years. And the subtitle is going to be something like the definitive how-to guide for parents and adult children living together. As you know, Mark, this is an increasing trend in America, very common in other cultures. China, India, you often have multi generations in one, under one roof or very nearby.
Right. Mhm.
It's not been the norm in the United States since World War II, when we built the suburbs and encouraged everyone to go out and live on their own, and we really had that engine, that economic engine going, and people sort of moved out. But it's now unaffordable in so many communities, including mine, for a young person. Even if they're educated, even if they have a full-time job, they can't make rent because housing costs have escalated and salaries and wages have not kept up. And so a lot of people, even if they want to move out, they can't afford it. It's not their fault. It's society's fault. I think we have failed to look out for young adults with our macroeconomic policies. So I know, of course, it makes financial sense often to move in together, or maybe somebody needs elder care, child care. We want to spread the expenses. but living together with your adult child or with your parent when you are the adult child can be really hard at the relational level. How do you go from the hierarchy of parent child where, the parent can dole out consequences to a child whose room is dirty, or, who came home too late? What do you do when you're sort of, you go from vertical to horizontal? We're all adults, we all want to be respected and valued, we have different amounts of money and different amounts of time, but we all want to be treated with dignity and kindness. I'm working on a book that is fundamentally about communication, communicating about all the various aspects of running this house so that, we are collectively doing it and everyone's getting their needs met while caring about what do I need to do in order to help you feel you're getting what you need out of this living situation.
I love that book. I hope I get to see it soon. And if you want to have an example that I work from, you've probably heard of the Pareto principle, the
Yeah.
80-20 rule, where 20% of the people owns 80% of the world. I look at it a little bit different. I call it the 20-60-20 principle, where there's a 20% extreme on each side, but there's a 60% where we can all live together. Now, it's not always 20%. Sometimes it's 3, 60, and whether it be 47% or 37%. The percentages aren't exact by any means, but if we can work on that middle, that medium, and get off of those extremes, even with prejudice,
Yeah.
that's what we need to stop.
Yeah.
Because even in a home, the
Yeah.
parents, we have to, it's a husband and wife, the spouse, we have to think about ourselves first.
Yeah.
It's just like when we talk about the airplane. When you're on an airplane, oxygen mask comes down. Who do you put the oxygen mask on first?
Yeah.
Yourself. You can't
Yeah.
take care of anyone else if you
Right.
can't take care of yourself.
Right.
So the parents come first in their relationship, and then
Yeah.
the children come in with their own ability to
Yeah.
participate. And as you talk about, with communication
Yeah.
and sharing, so that you can all pitch in together. So it's not always running to mommy or daddy or whoever it might be.
Yeah.
I need this. And then they have to stop what they're doing, whoever they're around, and help that child or someone else when that child or someone else could be doing that themselves, right? They
Yeah.
can take on that responsibility and accountability, right?
Yeah. Absolutely. My first book, How to Raise an Adult, um, which, sort of put me on the map as a nonfiction author, led to a TED talk. I talk about how harmful it is when we control our kids so much that we end up making all the decisions for them. We think we're helping them, but we're actually depriving them of the life experiences that'll teach them how to be problem solvers and decision makers, and also to develop resilience for when whatever they chose didn't go so well. And it's we get quickly to a parent's ego and why is it that you feel a need to control your child, and ensure every outcome, prepare the road for the child instead of letting, preparing the child for the road. um, and often our own personal relationships, if we're raising our kids with a spouse, with a husband or wife, um, often those relationships just get put on the back burner because we're so focused on cultivating our child's every moment. And then we look up after 18 or 20 years, the child's out of the house and you realize you don't know your spouse at all and you want to try to reinvest in that then. And I would say, like, good luck. Nice, good intention, but if
Good
you
intention,
keeping
but
it going along the way, you'd have that good marriage still, and you showed your kids that you have to prioritize the relationship. It's not selfish to focus on our marriages. It's actually helping to ensure that the environment in which we're raising our kids is loving and healthy.
because they do learn from us. That's what the culture is about.
Yeah,
It's a whole learning system.
yeah,
The 5 people that you're around the most is who you're most alike. So that includes your parents and what our parents teach us, what I teach my children and my friends. It's all about doing what's right as much as possible
yeah. Agreed.
and helping each other.
Yeah.
And I think we can do that. Well, you have several books in that raising the child. Tell us more and more about your
Yeah.
new book, if you would.
Yeah.
We have about 8 more minutes.
So my first book, How to Raise an Adult, is sort of the, how not to be a helicopter parent, how not to so micromanage your child that they feel like a racehorse in the Kentucky Derby, and you're riding them like a jockey, or you're the one that goes home with the trophy for their achievements. Look at my child, my masterpiece, as if we can take credit for who they are. Um, uh, I say, no, we got to fundamentally respect, that this child is a gift from God or the universe or however you believe we got here. And our job is to feed them, love them, shelter them, and get out of the way so that they can figure out who they are and, become that person. I have a sequel to that book, which is called Your Turn: How to Be an Adult. It's a pretty big book, and it's kind of a Bible on how to live your best adult life, from relationships to money to what to do for work to self-care to coping with tragedies and just becoming more self-sufficient. This is a how-to with a lot of practical lists for various things, but also every chapter ends with stories of people whose lives kind of reflect the lessons I'm trying to teach in that
Excellent.
chapter. Yeah, and then we've talked about Real American, which is my memoir on being Black and biracial, in various towns and cities across this country. The new book, the bonus years, won't be out, I think, until January 2027. I'm very much still writing that book. Haven't even turned in a draft yet, but super excited to try to, just like my first book really met people where they were. We had so many parents who were really adopting that helicopter trend, and my book really points out quite bluntly how problematic it is. I'm also trying to really meet the moment of multi-generational living, which is, I've said, is a trend. People need help. They're finding themselves in these home environments and really struggling with the interpersonal dynamics. And I'm trying to serve by writing nonfiction. So writing this book, I'm really trying to help the millions of people who find themselves living this way.
Oh, wish you the best. I can't wait for that to come out because some of your writing has been so needed, as you're saying. And when you have the multi-generational families, sometimes we just don't know, but be able to have
Yeah.
the guidelines that we can turn to a book like yours and
Yeah.
see what are some ideas that we can use to make life better,
Yeah.
make life livable.
Yeah.
I like
You know
that.
what? Here's a little hint. As I've interviewed people about their multi-generational family, I've learned that rituals turn out to really um foster connection. Rituals like, we have dinner together every night or twice a week, whatever it is, everyone counts on it. They know it's happening. They know they're expected. They know that it's a time of connection. It's like park your troubles, sit down, share how things are going. Like dinner isn't the time to talk about what's wrong with somebody. Dinner's the time to connect around, what's going on in people's lives. But rituals can be as simple as like we always walk the dog together, and on those walks we talk. And that's when, the real stuff comes out and the real connections are made. It could be a regular board game night, with your family. It could be anything. It's the intentionality of like we will carve out a little bit of time in our collective busy lives for each other. And when we have those rituals in place, it ends up being, like a little bit of balm, a little bit of lotion, a little bit of easing of, a circumstance that, quite naturally has some tensions inherent in a bunch of people living together.
That's beautiful. Yeah, that's that helpful
Yeah.
to help people understand that going forward. Your insight on helping others, I think, is so profound because you're looking at situations that is normal to a lot of people, as you're saying, but we don't quite know where to turn at times.
Yeah.
And you're giving us those ideas, and that helps. So thank you very much for that. That's awesome.
I appreciate
We
you,
have a
Mark.
few minutes.
Yeah.
Oh, thank you, and what you're doing. We have a few minutes left, so we can, if there were one key idea from your work. Now, the helicopter parenting, I think, is just wonderful what you're talking about. But uh, other than that, from your work, if
Yeah.
the people that are listening today, the people that will replay this later, what do you think you would want them to take home and apply today? What would that be? Your one key idea? Julie, what do you think that might be?
Yeah, for someone like me, one idea is hard, Mark. I'm sure it's the same for you, but I'll go to the parenting stuff because this is your August is your month on moms and parenting, and I did a little graphic trying to summarize the key points of how to raise an adult. And I have 7 points. I'm going to try to pull out the key one. Um, I can empathize and empower instead of swoop in and solve. As parents, we want to keep our kids safe. Of course, our job is to keep them safe until they can keep themselves safe. But often we overparent by making sure nothing ever happens. They don't experience life. We think everything's an emergency. We have to handle it. And so I tell parents, like, yes, your heart is like, I need to get involved. I can solve it. I should solve it. I should fix it. I should talk to the teacher. I should yell at the coach. And that's what I call swoop in and solve. And I say, instead, you got to back up, regulate your own emotions. What am I feeling? Work on all of the stuff that's anxious in you, soothe yourself, give you a little distance, and just empathize. Oh, that looks hard. I'm always here for you, buddy. But you know what? You, although this is hard, you do hard things. You say that, it's empathy, it's empowering. You smile and walk away is another one of my tips. Like, don't over talk it, don't over, just say it, smile, leave. Sometimes we physically have to leave and let them try the thing. I'm not talking about when they're in the ocean for the first time or standing on a cliff at the Grand Canyon. And don't abandon your child in a dangerous situation, but most
Right.
parenthood is not a dangerous situation. It's an opportunity for them to learn if we get out of their way.
That is beautiful. And I love that. And I hope we can all listen to this and put that into action. And that's what we want to do with this. And your message is so clear and so bountiful and so beautiful. Julie, thank you so much. We extend our heartfelt thanks to you,
You.
Julie Lythcott Haims, and that is her URL. That's her link. Just julielythcotthaims.com. And thank you for joining us today, generously sharing your life story, your insights, your wisdom, your books, because your passion for uplifting others, fostering that authenticity, and advocating for equity has truly inspired us, the listeners that will listen to this. Julie, we're grateful for the time, the energy, and the honesty that you bring to us in our conversations. And it's a true privilege to walk alongside you,
Mm.
even for just a few moments, even just for a few minutes, because of your remarkable journey. And I hope we can continue this going forward.
I
Our
appreciate that.
journeys are, oh, my pleasure. Our journeys are a powerful reminder that unity and raising an adult begins within, as we talked earlier, through self awareness, resilience, and the willingness to grow from our failures. And we will at times. But today's message perfectly mirrors the Achieving Unity success formula, turning that chaos into clarity, isolation into inclusion, and broken trust into purposeful collaboration. We all can do better working with others because we cannot do it alone. We must remember that unity isn't just an ideal, it's a daily choice to lead with empathy, act with integrity, and uplift each other along the way. So if you felt a spark, as I did with what Julie brought us today, with anything that I have said today, please follow that feeling. Contact me, contact Julie. Again, it's just our names. Mine's markintricate.com, Hurley, Julie, Lythcotthaims.com. Talk to us. That influence and recognition that we learned here from Julie Lythcott Haims, her message, contact her. Find her on LinkedIn. I appreciate that. Julie, I appreciate you. If you have any closing comments, closing remarks.
Just gratitude for everyone who's been listening. If, as Mark said, if anything came up for you as we were talking, hey, we're not talking about you. We don't know what your life situation is, but if your body gave you a little clue, like, ooh, that's important. That's evidence from your own self that we were maybe hitting a nerve or pressing on something that is worth your further investigation. So whatever came up for you as we were talking, that's valid. And I would say take it forward, take it into conversation with a friend, with a therapist, with a pastor, like whomever, like whatever came up for you, that's a clue from you to you that there's some valuable work to be done.
Thank you, Julie. That is so well said. I appreciate that. For each of us, and contact me.
Yeah.
Until next time, let us continue turning that chaos into connection. Let us keep achieving unity. www.achievingunity.com. Call us 303-362-8733, which is 303 focused, as we can stay focused on turning chaos into connection as we are achieving unity by harnessing that power, the power of encouraging, inspiring, and including others in building better businesses, better lives, and a better world. Life is truly what we make it. So let's make it awesome together in unity. Thank you all. Thank you so much for being here and for your message and helping others. Julie, your time and your commitment is awesome, and I appreciate it. Hope to see you again soon. Let's talk again soon.
I look forward to it. Thank you so much.
Hope to
Appreciate you.
talk to all of you again next week. Thank you. Julie, take care.
You too,
Till
Brian.
then, thank you. Cheers.